Okay, so I guess let's just get into this right now. So I know that we usually end um our little chit chats with COVID, but I want to start with it and just kind of get this out of the way because I have another cautionary tale or two tales I need to share with the class now. So
Okay.
yeah, right now we are what is it? We're into August. It's August 2nd. We now have close to 5 million cases, confirmed cases, mind you. Could be more because of our lack of testing. And we will soon be approaching the 160,000 mark. What was it? 1,200 deaths yesterday. So this is a Washington Post article from like 2 hours ago. So it says Deborah Birx, the physician overseeing the White House coronavirus response, warned Sunday that the United States has entered a new phase of the pandemic and urged people to take extreme health precautions as infections and deaths rise sharply throughout the country. She stated, "I want to be very clear that what we're seeing today is very different from March and April." Noting that cases were increasing in rural and urban areas, it is extraordinarily widespread. So I don't know, I don't know if you think that we're still in the first wave or if we're, approaching the second wave, but people have said the second wave was supposed to start in the autumn. We still got about a month or two left of summer.
So the way that I would put at it is you have to think about the different places where people have been hit with this, right?
Yes.
So places like Florida, Austin, those truthfully have been hit by the first wave.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of delayed the onset of it. But through reckless action and continuation, they've had that. Colorado has currently hit its second wave. Yeah, well, so you can see within the testing rates, right? It's kind of like whoop,
yeah,
right. I think it will happen again. We'll see if we have to go on shutdown or if everything kind of like they can shut it down enough to kind of get the numbers back down. Because I mean, I expect some oscillation. Mm-hmm. Until we get a vaccine, especially since it doesn't seem like people are holding on to their immunity or the antibodies.
So, I think Ohio, where I'm from, is kind of in the same situation right now because just earlier, a few days ago, Governor Mike DeWine issued that the sales of alcohol at bars and restaurants have to be stopped now at 10 p.m. That's closing time. So we are, I think, approaching a kind of precautionary level where we're at the precipice of another potential shutdown. Basically, DeWine is saying, listen, if y'all can't behave, we're all going to go into timeout again.
Yeah, I think that's true for many regions across the country. Now, my biggest disgust with that is that you still have people that are meeting via Skype to determine whether or not they're going to have children go to school.
Yes. I mean, keep in mind all this. We're still in summer. If things are starting to get this bad right now, when we're still in summer, we're in the warm weather, kids have not gone back to school, we haven't approached autumn yet, when supposedly the second wave was supposed to hit. It's hit. Imagine what the next few months in the later half of this year are going to be like. So going on in this article, when asked about an estimate from former Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Scott Gottlieb that virus deaths could top 300,000 by the end of this year, Birx said anything is possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already over the halfway point of 300,000. We've already crashed 150,000 threshold, which is, we're basically a little bit over halfway through the year.
Yeah, I really hope they're right. I hope it's the halfway point, right? And I think that the probabilistic models have basically shown out to be true, right? I mean, they were pretty close for the 100,000 estimate. They were 200 to 300,000 people was the mark. I hope now, obviously, right, those models get updated, right? Not all, and people don't understand when things deviate from the models, it's because no model can predict the future, right?
Yeah, true.
No model is correct. Every model, or some models, are useful. And we have to constantly update them. So I think if we stay smart, in the words of Colorado's governor, don't be a selfish bastard and don't be dumb.
Okay.
I mean, that's
yeah. Speaking of don't be selfish and don't be dumb, I want to ask you something. Why do you think we're still having this prevalent increase of coronavirus cases throughout the country?
Because America is filled with anti-science loons and selfish assholes.
People not wearing masks?
Yeah, or incorrectly, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh God. I don't know how many times I've seen people that have their mouth covered, but not the nose.
Oh, I just tell everyone that I have it. Man, it looks like you zipped up your Johnson, and they're like, "What?"
I was gonna say there's a meme. I forget where. I know I shared it a while back, but basically, people who have their nose covered are the ones that have their dick flopping over their trousers.
Yeah, so that's I just tell them it looks like you zipped up your Johnson. You should cover your nose, and they're like, "Oh, right."
But no,
I'm like, it doesn't do anyone any good if you have it that way, right? Because you're primarily breathing out of your nose, ideally. Mm-hmm. But, some of these knuckle draggers might be mouth breathers. So, I mean.
Yeah, true. So this anti-mask thing, I know, is not helped by people that spread this disinformation about the utility of masks or about just the seriousness of this pandemic in general. So.
Charlie Kane is a great example.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Charlie Kirk?
Yeah,
Charlie Kirk, TPUSA.
I thought it wasn't Charlie Kirk that got hit; it was somebody else.
No. We'll get to Bill Montgomery. I want to share this little quick video of Charlie Kirk because he highlights. Again, people, I want to spoilers. We talked about the tragedy of the local Ohio man, Richard Rose, last week. But now, because people don't want to listen, I now have two cautionary tales again to tell you. Again, take a guess what political leanings they are and how they think this pandemic is. So I want to share this deal with Charlie Kirk. So let me bring this over here. So this is Charlie Kirk. You can see this, right? We're good. Okay.
I start screen sharing. I do not see which screen you have.
You don't see this? You don't see what I'm seeing?
I do not know.
Let me stop sharing for a second. Okay. All right, let me try that again. Share computer sound. Okay. So now do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is Charlie Kirk talking about his views on mask wearing.
Look, I'm going to be very
can I not
honest.
This?
I'm not a fan of these mask mandates. If you want to wear a mask, that's liberty. That's fine. If you want to wear an Abraham Lincoln hat, you can wear that too. If you want to wear a New York Yankees hat, that's fine. I mean, if you think it's going to help you, do not force me to wear a mask. It's that simple. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. The only time I comply is on the airlines because I actually need to fly the airlines to be able to do my job and travel the country so I can deliver truth to you and make an income and grow Turning Point USA. So that's the fight I do not fight. But every single time I go into one of these grocery stores, where's your mask? I say, well, first of all, the science around masks is very questionable. Very questionable.
Hold on. What questioning is he talking about? What skepticism is he implying here about the mask?
So when people cite these articles, and I've spent my time going through it, and then usually I'm like, okay, wait, how many of you have even had chemistry, biology, and physics in high school? Yeah. let's start there, and then the second part is have you ever taken a college level science course? Not to shame anyone that hasn't, right? If you haven't, that's cool. Just also understand that you might not be the person that's making the most informed decisions, right? So maybe you should trust the experts in the field.
Yeah.
Mises recently put out an institute that's saying, but we can see during the Spanish flu that this wasn't necessarily the
you said the Mises Institute?
Mises Institute.
Oh yeah. God, are they fucking on board with this anti-mask bullshit? I shouldn't be surprised because that's like the The libertarian brothel house.
No, I mean, it's just basically a bunch of degens from Up County charading as intellectuals.
Yeah.
Anyhow, little Letterkenny reference in that. But where I'd like people to think about it is like, if you look at the Spanish influenza epidemic, they had gauze masks, and the particulate matter which influenza traveled on the water droplets was much smaller, right?
Right.
2, the masks weren't as good. 3, people did the same shit that they're wearing now, doing the, hey, what are you talking about, right? As they shoot out from their disease holes and basically blast everyone with that wonderful, wonderful viral load. Mm-hmm. Second thing that they're doing is they're citing back a study where it shows that, there's still contaminated water particles that have some viral load on it outside of the mask, even if you sneeze. Yeah, that's kind of it. So basically, to me, it's like wearing a bulletproof vest. It's nice, right? It's helpful,
right?
But is it 100%? No. And that's why social distancing paired with mask use and cleanly habits are so important. And if we cannot get that through to people, I just want to put it this way, right? So oftentimes I understand that calling people names doesn't really make them exactly want to listen to you. And I go, okay, so let's put it this way, right? What they did back in the Spanish flu is basically 1, it's your patriotic duty. 2, it's unmanly. And 3,
it's unmanly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sort of echoing the cuck sort of like feelings that people get when they're told to fucking put on a mask.
Yeah, and it's the same people that call other people sheep, and I go, okay, who's my shepherd, right? Yeah. So, these are the same people that are barely. It's always the I'm a capitalist. I'm like, no, you do not own capital. Right?
You have Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome for sure. But basically, but the science not being settled, that is dangerous and stupid. But considering it's coming from Charlie Kirk's mouth, is that a surprise? No.
Yeah.
In fact, some doctors think that masks actually make you sicker and have you less likely to be able to get oxygen and more likely to infect yourself and less likely to be able to fight the virus and actually more likely to be able to...
I just want to note that obviously scientific community is never 100% consensus, but he wants to focus on the outliers and not what the majority of the scientific and medical community have to say about this shit. And of course, he's not going to cite it. So
he's not going to cite anything because he's going to say some doctors because he watched Plandemic before it was taken down.
Yes.
When people say that, right, it's the same fucking shit that they use against climate change. Right?
Exactly.
That small amount of people that disagree with the scientific consensus are due to chance, right? Like that's cooked into the statistics. And people need to understand that maybe those people have differing interests that they're looking at promoting within this, right? They could just be fucking crazy, or they could have some, they could be crazy, they could be dumb, or they could have another agenda. Exactly. And I mean, like that's in the climate studies, that is almost universally true.
Yes, very true.
Right, and just because you're smart and knowledgeable in one field does not it's not a intellectual panacea that makes you able to solve all the world's problems.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
To die sooner. A lot of people believe that. I've met many doctors that hold that view. Secondly, we have a huge civil liberty issue here. Why do you have the authority to tell me what I can and cannot do with my body? I thought it was my body, my choice.
The crux
I thought
of the
that was the entire thought process as to why we are wrongly able to terminate 1 million children in the womb every single year. And so I just don't like being told what to do generally by the federal government. I'm not a type of person who plays well when the government comes in and starts to say you must put this on your face. Now, I think there's some restrictions that I support. I'm actually in the minority. I support seatbelt laws because I think seatbelts actually save lives.
Wow, what a radical fucking position to take, Charlie.
He's in the minority because seatbelt lives save laws, but yet he doesn't extend that logic to masks. There's people that will say, oh man, not wearing a seatbelt saved my life.
Yeah.
I was thrown from the vehicle and the vehicle exploded.
He actually, he has like he'll explain. I caught a glimpse of this before we went live, but he'll tell you his reasons why he believes in seatbelt laws, and of course, it's for a very selfish fucking position. So
I think it's not that big of an infringement on your liberty. I kind of disagree with a lot of people on this. I mean, some super strict libertarians say, "Oh no, seatbelts ever." Okay, if you fly through the window of a car because you didn't want to wear a seatbelt, and all of a sudden I have to pay for your health care, that's ridiculous.
So let's take it from this perspective. No, I'm sorry. Did you have to get up for a minute? Like, oh fuck, what the? I
gotta make sure my dogs aren't doing anything.
Okay.
Hey, off that. How did I know?
Kevin is right now infringing on the dog's personal liberty to be on the furniture. He's being authoritarian right now. This is what the left wants, people.
What, to have well-behaved dogs?
I was telling him that you're infringing on your dog's personal liberty to be on the furniture.
They did not eat all the sausage and pancake. I stopped them from that. Yeah. That damn totalitarian left, man. Next thing you know, I'm going to put my dogs in a gulag.
Basically, you need to talk to Charlie Kirk like you're talking to a dog. But, like, his argument is like, oh, you should wear a seatbelt because, like, if you get an accident, I got to pay for your health insurance. Well, let's fucking, like, look at it from this perspective. If you fucking get me sick, could I fucking sue you for infringing on my fucking safety?
So right now there's actually a lot of lawsuits and there's going to be a massive court battle concerning this with employees looking at trying to get remunerated from illnesses at work being forced to work. I would almost guarantee it.
Also, be careful because the Republicans right now are trying to push in the CARES Act a statute that will absolve any businesses of any liability if their employees get sick on the job. They will be not allowed to sue them.
Well, so this is also coming from one of the most anti-labor administrations in history. They actually made it so that unless the lawsuits all the employees are not able to cluster together and file a lawsuit unless it's part of a union. If it's administered by a union, it's different because that's considered a single entity. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, there has to be independent lawsuits that will go on with that. So, in consideration of collective bargaining and labor rights and those other things, that is a massive court decision. That is a massive legal change, and that will echo throughout history in the next bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's terrible, but
Of course, like, that's okay because that's private business in Charlie Kirk's mind. But, us telling him to, like, hey, put on a mask, that's pushing the envelope with him. That's going too far.
Well, he wants businesses to be able to discriminate against people for whatever reason. Yeah. He doesn't
for freedom,
because there's
because he has a very infantile perception of what it means to be free. Let's just be honest. Anyway,
mask might not even work. A mask is questionable at best. So the science around masks needs to be debated more. And the fact that these Republican governors are saying, "Oh, you must wear a mask. You must wear a mask," I think it's nonsense. I don't think it's popular. I have never met anyone that says, "I just love wearing my mask. I love it." Yeah, okay.
I contest that because I just found out, like, if I'm wearing my mask and I put some fruit gummies in it and, like, chew it like a horse, I find that to be fun. So you can be experimental with your mask, Charlie. Yeah. You just have to be inventive.
Yeah. Here's what's great, not spreading the infection.
Yeah.
Man, I love not being a disease.
I love not being a walking pathogen. I don't necessarily enjoy wearing a mask. I guess it's okay because it covers my ugly face, so there's some utility, I guess.
This is the problem with the marketplace of ideas, is that you can have someone with a platform that has malignant ignorance.
Yeah.
Now saying that, right? Like, I'm not really for censorship of speech, but like education is so critical to democracy, and unfortunately, we're looking at.
We don't have education right now. Right now, with Charlie Kirk, we have disinformation.
Yeah.
And propaganda.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I am not a fan. I think it's dehumanizing. When I see a 4-year-old wearing a mask, I can't think but help. We have let them down, and we have robbed them.
We have let them down, but for other reasons. Because we're thinking about sending them back to school in the middle of a fucking pandemic. But that's enough of Charlie Kirk. So of course, Charlie Kirk's part of TPUSA. The co-founder of TPUSA, Bill Montgomery, was a guy that approached Charlie Kirk and was like, "You should drop out of college and become a propagandist for the right."
You got a purted mouth.
Yeah. And of course, Charlie Kirk, sensing the dollar bills in it, was like, "Oh, okay, this is a pretty quick way to become rich, just by getting paid to say stuff." Like, I don't know, like what Charlie Kirk believes is between him and his God. I don't know, like, how extensive he believes all the shit he says, or whether or not, like, hey, I'm just being paid to say this. Okay, great. But one of these things that he says a lot is his anti-mask rhetoric. So, TPUSA is, of course, trying to be funny about how they get people to join their movement, and they do this by tweets. So, oh wait, this wasn't what I want to share. So, this was a recent tweet that they took down. Just not wearing a mask while a leftist screams at me from their car across a parking lot of Whole Foods. He's just taking in the bliss. This was right before the co-founder, Bill Montgomery, dies from fucking COVID.
Oh, it happens, man. He's old.
Yeah.
Let the weak perish.
So, Bill Montgomery is dead. So, any conservatives out there, pour one out for your homie. Another person that died was Herman Cain. Remember Herman Cain? Remember the 2012 GOP presidential nominee who, when I look back at that, I think of fonder times because I considered Herman Cain to be kind of one of the more extreme nutcases from the right before Trump came along. A lot of priceless moments I've had with him.
I don't know, man. I mean, they're all freaking batshit at this point.
So Herman Cain attended Trump's Tulsa rally back in June. And he had a few choice words to say about masks as well. He says, "Masks will not be mandatory for the event, which will be attended by President Trump. People are fed up." And he shares the article, South Dakota governor, that there will not be social distancing at the Mount Rushmore event. He later, another tweet, "Our government and our media have incinerated their credibility. So is it any wonder that people are skeptical?" Folks, Herman Cain was shown with pictures, being crowded around people not wearing a mask. Is it any coincidence that weeks later he dies from COVID?
I don't think so.
It's just like, again, like, because we talked about Richard Rose. I can't stress this enough. Please wear a mask.
Yeah.
You could say, Herman Cain said that there is no pandemic. COVID is only going to respond with, there is no Herman Cain. Because, like, okay, listen. So both Bill Montgomery and Herman Cain, yes, they had positions. They had these anti-mask positions. They were skeptical about the science. They didn't think that this pandemic was serious. But, now that they're dead, I feel like they understand now the seriousness of this pandemic, and they should be more cautious with, how they interact in public. So I think there's a lesson I think they've learned their lesson. I'm being sarcastic. They're dead. They're fucking dead. Okay? They're like, and coming from somebody like, okay, I'm not going to say like, oh, I don't wish ill on people, because I do. And if there's anybody that I really wish, no, I do. If there's anybody that I wish that gets this virus and dies, it's President Trump. But of course, he's getting away scot-free while all his fucking lackeys that are simping for him are fucking dropping like flies.
Yeah.
Like,
it happen.
It's getting so bad because like now there's conspiracies being driven out on the right, like that the COVID is actually a bioweapon being used by the Democrats, because it just so happens that all the people that are dying are associated with the right. Well, here's a fucking clue, Sherlock. Why don't you take a step back and like try and understand why you think all these people on the right are dying? Because they're not adhering to safety protocol. Now, I don't want a lot of you people to fucking die, because, you know, we're all in this together, and it's not the people, I pity the people that fucking die, but I'm more concerned and I fear about the people who don't fucking take this shit seriously, get the virus and have, are asymptomatic to it, and are unintentionally spreading it to other people.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I mean, my personal hope is, because we just had my son get tested, so now we have to wait and see what their response is, right? Now, given my wife and I are both in healthcare and my son's at daycare, so that classifies us as like high risk personnel where we could unintentionally spread it. So I always wear my mask. I try to keep social distancing, try to keep everything hyper sanitary at my workplace, right? Or any place that I come into contact with. And unfortunately, you know, like there's only so much you can do.
That's right. There's only so much you can do. That's why it's like, I can't stress like what we can do should be done.
Yeah. So like now my son's fever just broke, which is great. Right. But without having a negative COVID test, we have to self-isolate for the next 10 days. Mm-hmm. So ideally that comes through and it comes out negative, because I'd really like to go back to work. But, you know, it's just one step at a time, right, and making sure that we're, you know, not spreading it and trying to be as responsible as possible so that other people don't get it. And you know, maybe it's too much for people to inconvenience themselves, and I understand that they don't have the same resources that my wife and I do. But you know, I mean, I think it's an important thing.
This is a serious thing, and for anybody that is like has this argument, like who wants to basically be like Charlie Kirk and argue like, well, I don't like being told what to do. You're not being profound. You're not being revolutionary. You're a rebel without a fucking clue. Like, yeah, like you're gonna make this like a big deal, and like you don't understand, if that's the hill you want to die on with this argument, you're literally risking the chance that you're actually gonna die on that hill.
Well, I think too, like if we even go back to classical philosophy, because many centrists and conservatives love classical philosophy. So let's, you know, go back to the golden mean. People often think that courage and fear are two sides on that. And then they go, wait, why would I want to be in the middle of that? Well, no, courage is actually the middle between fear and recklessness, right? And understanding and applying these things, right, actually can make you courageous versus, right, just ignoring the danger, right? Right. No one is courageous that ignores the danger, right? Like there's a difference between courage and stupidity, and unfortunately, Kirk is a yeah. And there's a bunch of people that listen to him, and he has sway. Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. You know, again, not trying to decrease anyone's agency in this situation. But we have a college dropout versus some of the best trained people in the country. And if you respect the meritocracy, right, even though I'll say that there's some construct validity issues within that, these people know more than you do. Shut your freaking hole. You know what I mean? Like, that's color me aggravated, but whatever.
Well, speaking of courage and aggravated, let's move to racism.
Okay.
So
let's white explain this shit. So.
I mean, so this is a video I found interesting. This was what was this? This was holding a Black Lives Matter sign in the most racist town. I don't know how they deduced that this is the most racist town, but apparently Harrison, Arkansas is the most racist town in America. Again, don't know if that's true, but looking at the reactions, I'm not surprised why people came up with that conclusion. So let's just do a little quick watch of this video.
Harrison, Arkansas is the most racist town in the United States.
Have a little pride in your race, brother. White pride, worldwide. I wouldn't say after dark, man.
Honestly, dude, you have balls of steel because you could get hospitalized by some guys that want to beat your ass.
I've had several old men come out here, look out the window and tell me, says, you better go tell that nigger to get out of here and shit.
He then drives back.
About 10 minutes, I'm gonna be back. You better be fucking gone.
Okay, come back.
What that's white lives. We matter too. You're a white man. Crazy.
You're a dumbass motherfucker. You dumb shit.
I want to pause it for a second because, like, they're stressing, like, the importance of white lives, and then the woman proceeds to call her a Jewish derogatory term.
Yeah, I mean that's
makes me question, like, how much do they actually really care about white lives?
Yeah.
Are you a Marxist?
Communist. Domestic terrorist.
Why don't you take it to Chicago or New York or cold enough where they're shooting each other?
Explain to me why Ku Klux
Holy shit.
Real fucking job.
I'm Jesus.
Get your ass out of town. That shit don't make shit here.
Hey, all lives matter, not just black.
You're Caucasian.
You're white.
You look like a white guy holding a black lives matter sign. What's the deal with that? I'd be ashamed to be a white boy carrying that stupid sign.
You're white, aren't you? Oh, boy. Hey, lady, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. Hey, you saying something, dude?
Yes, sir.
I am good.
Because I'm tired of seeing this right here is the biggest hoax there ever was.
It's just that
Black Lives Matter.
It is.
Black Lives Matter is ISIS.
matter, but what about ours, man?
Apparently, black people's lives matter more than us.
Apparently.
You know, the Irish had...
Somebody accused the Irish.
Irish were slaves too. No, they weren't. They weren't treated great, right? But poor people in this country have never been treated great.
No, yeah, mind you, that's just the part of the American experience, I guess. But
I want to say there's a book. I think it's called The Mud.
this is my reaction, by the way, to this video. Inaudible screaming in my head, like you fucking see. This. Oh God. Stop. I love that fucking argument. Like somebody like, I'm allowed to say racist shit because I have a black friend.
Yeah, no,
I don't think that woman has actually black friends. I'm just
No, but like
she might think they're her friends, but the probably the black people are like, oh God, here comes this racist bitch again.
Smile. Why do I still live here?
Yeah, I could tell like why they want to be quiet if this is like how the townsfolk act here.
Hey Mike,
yeah.
How's your day going? Walmart, they put out this statement.
I would ask you to leave. Exactly what I'm saying is exactly what they would ask me to do.
They had one person that's not racist. All right, well, that was that. So
Notice she was also wearing a mask.
there you go.
What? Yeah.
So arguments like, because like I don't know. I just want to hear your views on like the arguments behind like why people will say all lives matter or white lives matter too.
So it comes down to the same argument of white privilege, and I would say it really exemplifies white fragility. But there's some right-wing talking points, but basically the idea is that, oh, my life has never been easy. Being white didn't make it easier for me. And I go, okay, dude. But, you know, you have to think like privilege is not necessarily not meaning that your life wasn't hard.
Right.
Privilege means that you didn't grow up in Syria having both your legs blown off.
No.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that go on with that, and we have to contextualize this. The other things that we can see is that error detection rates, now given, you know, this is kind of some pseudoscience in my opinion, right? But error detection rates within conservatives are across the board usually a little bit lower, right? That's usually why people are going on with that. Jonathan Haidt goes into the moral philosophy of conservatism in his book The Righteous Mind, which is another great read. I think it's flawed, especially in consideration to where you can tell where his political stance is, and it's dated, right? Like it was more so like a Bush era or Obama era, where really this was starting to boil up, right? This wasn't, I mean, it was there, right? But it didn't reach critical mass.
You're talking about like suburban racists that were like subconsciously racist and they just didn't know they were racist.
Yeah, or it was like the people being aware of the facts, like you can make mistakes, right? And ideally we're all changing our minds because new data comes out.
Right.
But like when I say this, right, we are all just a little bit racist, right? And it's a reflexive thing, based upon tribalism and what's considered normalcy. And this originates from even when a person is born, right? Like, I remember now, so I grew up in rural white America. The first time that I saw a black man, I think I was like 6. And I asked, why does that man have chocolate skin?
I also said chocolate skin, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I just didn't know, right? And part of that's ignorance, but
yeah.
Another thing would be curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was explained that man's ancestors had that to help him deal with sun. I'm like, oh, okay, right? And then you move on. But the connotations that move along with that, the societal expectations, paired with large socioeconomic trends, we are all judged on a day-to-day basis on our aesthetics, ranging from the color of our skin to our waistline to how tall we are to the gender that we present with, right? Gender, as in like the sexual or the societal construct, right? We're not going to deal with that today, but let's.
Yeah. I wanted to say that point, like when you were young and you saw your first black person. I can't remember. It was a John Oliver segment I watched a while back, but it was about desegregation and like affirmative action. And why because like, yeah, racism is taught, but it is like also like can be deconstructed, and you can deconstruct racism at an early age. And part of doing that is, exposing children to different races at an early age. And I remember this segment with John Oliver where they had this clip of a video of child psychologists, holding pictures of people with different colored skin to a little girl. And they're like, which one's the bad person? And she points to the black guy. And the psychologist was like, well, why do you think he's the bad person? And she says, because he's darker than me and he looks different than me. Because we live like, I know that people like to think that the civil rights was a cure, a be-all, ends-all for our problems, which it wasn't. It helped, but we still have problems of racism and systemic racism in this country that is still prevalent to this day. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that, there's still, the majority of whites don't live in the cities. They live in the suburbs. And there's still sort of a disconnect. You can see this in the fact that urban culture is synonymous with black.
Yeah. Well, I think too, it should also be pointed out with like socioeconomic factors, including redlining. People act like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. And I'm like, dude, wait 1 second. The algorithms that people write when they're looking for someone, whether or not they're going to approve them for loans, are biased against black people. Literally.
And it's not the fact that we don't even do it anymore. That doesn't matter because we're still living in the ripple effects of that policy.
Yeah,
you can see that through the ghettoization of American cities.
Well, and it's when people talk about this, it's like the generational transfer of wealth. They don't associate that. They're like, "Oh man, it's done since the 1970s." I'm like, "Really? How many of you are still alive from the 1970s?" Like that's the.
There was a lot of missed opportunities, and that generational inheritance, builds up over time with white people, but it misses the fact that like people of our race were able to do that because past generations were helped during the New Deal. Black people were not. This is where redlining comes in. Veterans returning from World War II got housing assistance from the government, and that's how the suburbs were created. Guess who was excluded from that one? Minorities. So you're seeing all these contributing factors that explain the discrepancy that we have right now in the racial divide of America. And a lot of it still has to be corrected, but any attempts to trying to correct that, you're getting hit with reverse racism or the fact that you're preferring other people over white people. It's just aggravating. And I just want to say, because I hear the all lives matter deal. That's not an argument. That's just to shut down the concerns and that are being made against systemic racism in America, particularly with Black lives.
Yeah,
because these people don't give a shit about all lives. They really don't. No. They don't.
You remember the video where we showed the man that said,
all lives matter with the bow. Yes, everybody should go watch that again.
Yeah. So I mean,
they don't care. Yeah, they really don't care.
They don't. And I think that people driving into crowds really illustrates that. So let's put it on this way, right? If you can justify driving a vehicle into a crowd, right, what you're saying is that because I am going to be insulated from harm, right, because I have a metal bubble around me, I am then going to assault these individuals and disrespect their body, right?
Right.
So consider what that means. Consider what that means. But shifting on to that, right? Like some more of the outrage machine. I'd really like to pull this up so we can.
Okay.
Let me know if you can see it.
I see it.
The Federalist. So basically, if I look at Politico, they go on to some other things.
As they turn to burning Bibles, Portland writers show their true colors. So what is this?
Yeah. So
they're burning Bibles.
Yeah, they started burning Bibles after the people went at the federal courthouse, right? I have not seen a adequate response from the people on the left that were there, and I have no idea, so I can't.
Okay, this is news to me. I have no idea either. So yeah,
so this is basically being circulated. It's not even on Fox News yet, so maybe it'll come on.
But of course, E.O. Miles Chong is quick to jump the gun on this one. Hell yeah!
I don't know who that.
You don't know E.O. Miles Chong?
No.
He's essentially a fascist. He made a tweet, but he deleted it recently. Sometimes we just have to have fascism to put down these fucking people. He's talking about the Black Lives Matter protests. He's an open advocate for fascism.
Yeah,
he is a newcomer, but he's I know that YouTube is not so right leaning anymore, but he's a rising star still. You see people like Sargon and I don't know whoever else. They're kind of fading a bit. They're not as popular as they once were.
Yeah,
but Eels Miles Chong is a newcomer, and he's actually a right winger on YouTube as actually gaining support. So
yeah, I mean you've got a bunch of people that are and if they're like, oh my God, there's censorship on the right, dude, just wait until you're a leftist.
Yeah. So
what
did Ian Miles Chong have to share here?
Burn Bibles in front of a federal courthouse in Portland. I don't know what a burning Bible has to do with against protesting police brutality. Don't be under the illusion that these protests and riots are anything but an attempt to dismantle all of Western civilization and upend centuries of tradition of freedom and religion.
Ilmalis Chong is Malaysian, by the way. So the fact that he wants to associate with himself with Western civilization is quite ironic.
Okay, so it looks like two dudes threw some books on a fire. Some of those are pretty damn thin. That's a pretty tiny Bible.
Maybe it was just a part of the Bible. Okay, so they're burning Bibles. I mean, I don't know.
Two guys.
Again, two guys
right?
Burning Bibles. Okay. I mean, you know, I am one to be like, don't burn books.
Yeah, don't burn books in general.
Yeah.
Right.
Even the Bible. I mean,
yeah. So
as an atheist saying this, yeah, don't burn the Bible. I just don't see the utility of it. If you want to make a statement, because this kind of reminds me, like, this goes years back with the guy, like, some radical fundamentalist Christian was like, I'm going to burn the Quran. I'm like, okay, if you want to get, the publicity from it, that's why you're doing it. Okay. And like, okay, I'm sorry, I kind of like sidetracked you, but like, what did you want to share about that, the Bible burning?
Basically, people are going to be expecting that, right? So, I mean, like, the way that I would put it is that two individuals burning Bibles, right, are still a lot better than people driving into protesters, right? Or, I don't know, sitting in a crow's nest with sniper rifles.
Yeah.
Right. Or,
so you're
actively killing people.
You're talking about the intent of how you want to express yourself in terms of a First Amendment sort of expression. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would prefer book burning over as a form of protest rather than threatening people in menacing manners by going up into a sniper's post.
Or same thing with flag burning your Nikes because you're triggered about shit.
Yeah.
If you want to burn your LeBron jersey, I really don't care.
Right. Yeah.
If you're not hurting anybody, I don't care. Now, saying that, right, if you're trying to destroy knowledge and people being able to access records.
Yeah, that's the book burning I'm skeptical of.
Yeah, versus if those guys are like, yeah, man, I went to a bookstore and I bought a Bible so I can burn it.
I'm not too like worried about the emphasis of knowledge in the Bible, considering there's a Bible in every hotel drawer in America. So,
the only thing that would imagine that's associated with is to honestly just aggravate the shit out of the religious right and to open up a commentary that to this day you still have to swear on the Bible. Now you can swear on other things too.
No, I actually took my oath at the census and I swore on the Constitution. So yeah.
So I think that those are things to go about with that,
well,
right?
here is okay. So I mean, like, am I going to say the left is not short of assholes? No. I mean, there's plenty of assholes anywhere in any political affiliation. But like, here's the problem though. The mass violence that's being committed is almost universally associated with the right. I'm talking about the shootings. I'm talking about, paramilitary groups being formed. I'm talking about, the rhetoric that's being exposed, like the threatening of lives. Like, I can't deny that there's probably some Antifa person that probably just wants to provoke the police in some type of bullshit. I can't deny that. But
will there probably be some rise in left-wing violence? Yes. The only people that I can even think about,
but that hasn't happened yet, because if you're looking at the people that have died from political violence, the people that have been killing them have been associated with the right.
Yeah. The way that I would look at it is there's two people that I can think of, and one was the Dayton, Ohio shooter that went into the bar, right?
Yeah.
So that's one.
But here's the thing, though, that Dayton guy, it's hard to deduce that whether his shooting was politically motivated.
He killed his own sister. Like, what the hell happened with that? There's a lot of things wrong with that picture, right? Like, the guy was mentally ill, and I mean,
it's a stark contrast to like what happened. That happened a little bit earlier. Was it the El Paso shooter?
Oh yeah.
These are the motherfuckers that like write a manifesto like, this is why I'm doing this, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Versus this guy had some leftist Twitter.
Mm-hmm, yeah. He was basically a Bernie bro that was a fucking asshole on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, assholes come in every stripe, man. And we'll continue in this. The other one that I can think of is that there was a anarchist protester in, I want to say it was Oregon, but I'm not 100%. He was at a
Portland seems to be the hot spot anyway, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was Oregon.
Yeah, he was at a ICE detention center, right?
Oh, you're talking about the guy that tried to shoot up the place?
He didn't try to shoot up the place. No, he firebombed it.
Firebombed it, yeah.
Yeah, so he was tossing some Molotovs. Then the cops just lit him up.
No, that's another thing. I remember that, and that's the only like real true like left wing like activism like trying to like attack the system that I can point to. And here's the thing: one person got killed, and it was the Antifa guy that got killed. Yeah. And then because I remember that because the right tried to smear AOC.
Yeah,
like you're responsible for this. When this guy was radicalized far before AOC ever made it to the scene. This guy was twice her fucking age.
Yeah. The other thing that I would look at would be like you are seeing rises in community defense groups, and
we're gonna talk about boogaloo's now.
I think we're gonna go. I think so, and the reason that I want to bring this up is because I think it's important, and the one thing that I want to say is I believe that we need to understand what Say's law is and how to define the principle of that. Are you familiar with Say's law?
I do, but just explain it for everybody else.
Okay, so Say's law is basically the idea that if something is considered to be a commodity, like is a standard commodity within a society, everyone needs to have one. I believe a great example is no shirt, no shoes, no service. Mm-hmm. Now, no masks, right? Yeah. In America, I would also extend that to be firearms. And the reason why I would extend that to be firearms is quite simple. When everyone on your block has quite a few guns, you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight when your neighbor goes ballistic, right? And unfortunately, America is a rather violent place. But I don't think that firearms are going to, I think firearms are the root cause of why so many kids are dying in school shootings, right?
It's the preferred method of choice, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy, right? People are like, oh, well, you can use a hammer. Look at these guys in China, cutting these people up at a wedding or an airport or a sub, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, 14 people got injured, like one person died, and they were able to apprehend him. There's a difference between a guy swinging around a knife, right, and getting mobbed than the shooting at Christchurch, right? And the reason I bring that up is because Aaron on Re-Education does a great job in talking about how we should not want a civil war, right?
I have to check it. Is Re-Education?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very good.
I still have to look at him and Beer of the Fifth Column. So.
Oh yeah, Bo the Fifth Column is great.
Okay, so yeah, what's he saying about Civil War?
Well, both of them have context within that, and basically, it's a bunch of LARPers, right? Like the way that I put it is, it's a bunch of wannabes or has-beens, right? That are trying to be prepared and make themselves at least feel somewhat comfortable within that. No, I mean, I'm in awareness groups, right, among other things, in order to try to make sure that we are in the know of what's happening around in our community, right? Yeah. Like there was a shooting down at our park that we needed to, that's important to know about, right? Like my kid down there, it is like, as far as we know, an old lady or an older woman was freaking whacked out of her gourd and just popped a cap into two teenagers. My instinct tells me that it was drugs, but could just be crazy, right? But you're also having to deal with like different groups that are advocacy groups where you're thinking about like, okay, if I know that I have people that are potentially in danger of getting deported or these other things, having their rights removed, we should be looking at, immigration rights lawyers. We should be looking at these other things going along with it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm part of like some different advocacy groups on that part.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's just making sure that people have legal representation among other things.
Correct.
That we can do it correctly. But what we're also seeing in this situation is these bunch of LARPers, right? These wannabes that, again, I'll come at it again, couldn't pass a physical fitness test. They're talking about, oh man, just imagine how dangerous Dylan Roof was, or I brought up the Christchurch shooter for again, and it's like if you ambush unarmed people that have no military training, that's not a good example, because 10 Dylan Roofs versus 10 standard cops, the cops will win every time. Right. Because even if there's 10 Dylan Roofs, that's it. There's no more. They don't have radios. They don't have the infrastructure support that police do. And to think that you're going to be able to overcome any sort of like government in the United States through a small vanguard, you're an idiot, right?
It kind of reminds me of this old George Carlin bit where it's like, the Army has all the tanks and flamethrowers. I'd say we're fucked if we're going up against the Army.
Yeah.
But no, I think like this is important because like you talk about LARPers, I want to talk about grifters because Tim Pool loves talking about this shit, the inevitable American Civil War.
Yeah, no.
He's doing that because that will fucking prompt people because he's sponsored by like those survival meal kits. So he's like, hey, I can make if I market a fear, I can make a quick buck.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, he's advocating in his interest, right? And that is without deceit and fraud. I'm just telling you what I think.
Yeah. It reminds me also of the gun manufacturers that are like, as soon as like some shooting happened and there was talk of gun legislation, all these people talked about Obama's coming to take your guns. And what happened? Gun sales skyrocketed as a result.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I am very nervous about the federal police.
No,
right?
I am too. I want to get, okay. I understand that that's a big deal. I want to talk about this first because like a lot of these people that are joining these like militias or basically paramilitary groups, they're doing it based on conspiratory and lies. They feel like there's like this, because we have a friend who has a friend who is joining these groups that really thinks like the downfall of Western civilization is imminent. That there is an approaching Marxist authoritarian movement coming to get him. He's so scared.
He doesnn't think that. No, the group does.
Though. No, I'm talking about not our friend.
Yeah.
Our friend's friend.
Oh, yes.
I'm not saying names for privacy, but you know who I'm talking about. I know our friend is just joining because he just likes shooting guns. No, I understand. Yeah, and coming from somebody who shot guns myself, I see the fun in it too. But he's not like radicalized in this sense. In fact, I'm hoping he could be a sleeper cell to de-radicalize them.
Ideally, I think so too, right? The man has some good common sense. I think
a lot of people in these groups think these absurdities. And what do they do as a result? They get together, they arm up because they think like they're going to spring into action. Like say if Trump isn't going to win the election, they're going to think it's a fraud and they're going to think that they're under attack and they're going to feel like it's necessary to start an armed revolt. You already see some of these.
And that might happen.
Yeah.
And that might happen. And that would be a reason why Say's Law comes in. And if you have whack job neighbors that are armed to the teeth, it might be nice just to have a little deterrent, right?
But this is what I'm talking about. This is what pisses me off because I'm forced now to get my own fucking gun to engage in some brinkmanship with some fucking nuts. And I want to point to World War I as an example, because this is exactly what we're seeing in America, but at a very macro scale. So in World War I, before the outbreak, every nation in Europe had a huge standing army because they distrusted one another. And it only took...
Germany was looking at starting it too. They were looking at expanding it, right? Like, the idea before that time is that war was glorious.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody had like a big army, and as a result, it only took one minor incident to kind of spark the whole fucking deal to an explosion, and that's what happened in World War I. All these nations with massive armies, it took one person to shoot the heir to the Austrian throne, to kill him, to start a global conflict. And I'm seeing that parallel here, because if you have more people having more guns, that's going to escalate the tension. Things are going to be so fucking tense. It's only going to take one little event, no matter who fucking starts it, it's going to fucking explode out of proportion.
Yeah,
I get pissed at that. I get pissed at that because I got to fucking react now. Because, these people have fucking guns, and I want to protect myself, so now I have to fucking get a gun.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the grim reality that we live in, right? But, if you're in Africa and you have roving warlords that are looking at it and you need to protect yourself, you might want to associate with those other things. And I mean, it's the same thing. You think about why the Black Panthers formed, or these other groups that have gone with it. And we have to understand that, that's one theory of why it happened, right? If we look at the Civil War, if we look at World War I, great example, World War II, I would say that for a vast majority of human history, right, war has kind of been the default. Now, not everyone has been involved in it, right, but there has been some form of martial conflict that goes on, and if it's not martial, then it's economic, right?
It was primarily economic.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, especially in the age of mercantilism,
especially because of capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about. Imperialism is the height of capitalism. Yeah. So maybe we should consider that. But the other thing is always about resource aggregation, right, and accumulation. And that's why people fight over dirt is resources, right? Now, personally, my resources aren't affected by dirt. I will leave, right? I'm fortunate enough that that's not the case. I just need people, and the less people dying, the better my business is. Oddly enough, more people getting hurt is good for my business, but at the same point in time, that's, we don't want that either, right? I'd prefer people to be better off, which is why I'm in my industry. But if we're thinking about that, right, it takes concentrated effort to maintain peace and trade agreements, right? And it's because of the effort of those people and the small acts of kindness on a large scale that we cannot go through all the way. That's there, right? But World War I, people knew that shit was going to happen for a long time. To quote Otto von Bismarck, right? War is coming and it's going to be triggered off by some stupid shit in the Balkans.
But people didn't know. Okay, but people didn't know how terrible the war was going to be. That's the problem. That's the issue here.
But a similar thing, right? People knew the war was coming in the American Civil War. Yeah. They knew the war was coming with England because they were getting fervent with it, right? Thomas Paine didn't write his work in a vacuum. And I think that those things need to be considered, right? We know that tensions are continuing to build, and there is going to be a point where people draw a line in the sand, and they're going to pick a hill to die on. And I'm not excited about that.
I guess the point that people are talking about Civil War, but I feel what disturbs me is that they talk about it too nonchalantly, and they're not really emphasizing if it were to happen, it's going to be bad. We're looking at right now, we're in a pandemic, but it's also affected the economy. GDP has contracted by over 30%. That's more than the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Twice as much. People don't seem to realize that.
The next generational defining economic crisis, and America's incompetence in dealing with it is going to leave scars so deep it is going to affect people for decades.
I mean, mind you, we're also standing on the precipice of rent furloughs being expired, so you're going to see massive foreclosures, massive homelessness.
You're talking 29 million evictions.
Also, coupled with the fact that the second wave really gets really bad and you have to shut down, you're going to have more unemployment again. So what do people with no jobs that feel economically constrained and believe conspiracies, what do? Well, they're going to join these fucking paramilitary groups. And I don't stress, I mean, like, listen, I know, like, I agree with you that, yes, I mean, I'd rather to be armed than unarmed in this case because, like, yeah, I fear these right-wing groups because I think that they're openly trying to provoke something. And from somebody, again, I'm going to bring up the Jakarta method again. We can see how history showed that, you know, the leftists that tried to play the fair game of trying to achieve socialism through the democratic process always ended up with the CIA backing their military to overthrow their governments and them getting killed. So I just, like, if like, I guess the thing that pisses me off is that these people that, like, think, like, you know, the fall of Western civilization is coming and that there's going to be an incoming civil war. I don't think they really understand the seriousness of what they're trying to stoke here. Oh, like, I talked about it. Like, you know, a civil war in this country will probably resemble something that you see in, like, Syria or Libya. It's going to be really bad.
I think you would have geographic blocks, and then you would have, like,
the balkanization of America, basically.
Yeah, you would have the fracturing of America. It would be. I think that you would see it on, like, mega regions, right? Like, you would see. American Nations actually describes a very good analysis of it. To where he, you know, hypothesizes that there are 11 different American nations, and the odd thing is you can look at linguistic patterns and genetic drift, you know, that's supported by Ancestry and all the rest of those that match up with that pretty damn close, which is amazing. But on a separate note,
well, okay, so I want to, like, because this is going to tie back in with the federal authorities again, because I know on Twitter, on social media, I hear all these people talking about, like, because, you know, we talked about last week about federal agents abducting protesters, and people are wondering, well, where are all these Second Amendment people who are supposed to rise up against the tyrannical government? I'm here to tell you, people, they don't give a shit about you. They don't fucking care. In fact, they're probably cheering on. And also, if given the chance, if things get really bad, if there was an opportunity for them to join as an auxiliary force to augment the authorities, they would willfully do it if they gave them an opportunity to shoot a fucking leftist.
Yeah, they see leftists as terrorists, and I mean that's not any more plainly laid out than by Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, right? You know, Antifa are terrorists, or left-wing activists in Antifa, right? And basically they're going to try to cast a massive net to put anyone that is a dissident into a prison. That's my analysis.
So, okay. I mean, this is more theoretical now, or more hypothetical. How do you think a civil war would start in this country?
One way would be Trump refusing to leave the White House.
Okay. Or him claiming that it was rigged, even though he lost.
And then having it. Yeah. There would be a bunch of violent Trumpists. So
let's just say in this scenario, it's the right that rises up. How do you think the military would respond?
You know, before it would probably have divided along race lines. There is a excessive amount of white supremacy within the military. Also, there is a outlandish amount of support for Trump. Now it's a little more complicated because of Mattis, right? And John Kelly. Like those are two big heavy hitters where their opinions matter. Their opinions matter.
And they have both spoken out against Trump, by the way, for people.
Yes, but would they lead a resistance against Trump? I mean, I would hope so. Like those two are very skilled in exactly exactly dealing with the situation, but they're also old.
Well, Mattis, I know, certainly got his fucking experience by killing insurgents in Iraq. So for him to apply his expertise to killing American insurgents, I mean,
yeah, I mean, but like there would definitely be, so that could trigger something.
I guess like I understand that the military, like, the rank and file may be split on their allegiance. I'm just curious on how many would be would side with Trump, and how many would, there's a term for it, but it's basically to be a strict constitutionalist, like, you know what, we're supposed to be apolitical, we're supposed to, our oaths not to the president, to the Constitution and the country, so we're going to follow that. How many people would stick to that?
How many people
in the military
were willing to follow Barr in clearing out the streets in DC?
But you know what? That's DHS. Like, here's the problem. There is a difference between cops and personnel.
That's true.
Military personnel. And I know this because, like, during the Holocaust, the Nazis had trouble getting soldiers to do the genocide. And who do you think they turned to finally actually do it? Most ranking SS members were cops.
Yeah.
So there is a difference. And I talked about this. I don't remember which episode we did, but about Knowing Better's video. Like, there is a different standard that is held with military personnel. If the military were to do anything that the police would do, they would probably have a moral, like, conflict with that, with their conscience.
Oh, they'd also probably be court-martialed.
Yeah,
in some
I mean, it's different, obviously. Like how they, I mean, there's a lopside. How they view American citizens was how they view citizens of other nations that they invade, of course. Because, if we've seen through history, there's not much that they really care for. But in terms of American citizens, they have a totally different standard approach here. But
yeah, it's a difficult thing. I would say that's one thing. I do not think that these protests are enough currently because they are not a unified front, right?
No, because like these boogaloo like it's not a single cohesive unit, but they operate like a franchise. They all have a very vague and general belief structure.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain organizations, like you can look at like the Socialist Rifle Association, you can look at the Redneck Revolutionaries, you can look at a few of those, but even those, it's very loosely organized. I mean, it's nothing like it was. And I mean, there's a reason why the federal government pushed against the Black Panthers so hard, because they realized what would happen with it. And I do not see anything like that right now. Right. But I could see a moment like the beer hall poosh going through and then being followed up like a Night of the Long Knives, as you get a bunch of Trumpers going out in the streets and looking for people that they know are bad leftists.
Well, speaking of, parallels to Germany, like, I'm sorry, and I don't care if you're a member of these boogaloo groups, like, these groups too much remind me of the Freikorps groups that existed right after World War I in Germany.
Oh yeah,
basically. And a lot of these groups I know are ex-military people. Same thing happened in Germany. A lot of German soldiers were out of work, and they just basically became soldiers of fortune, and they put down leftist uprisings in not only Germany but also elsewhere in the Baltic states and whatnot.
Yeah. That's why I think it's such a great comparison within the Weimar Republic.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah. I remember you writing about that. There is a lot of parallels with Weimar.
I'm just saying, man, if shit hits the fan like that, I'm out. I'm out. And I'm figuring out a way to get out, right? Like that's I don't think that that's a radical stance to take, right? But
I don't want it to ever get to that thing, but like you're hearing rhetoric right now. Of course, Trump is like, of course, going to question the validity of the election if he loses. Of course, he did that in 2016, but now he's also trying to delay the election. And I think like he's either going to set himself up to try and challenge the legitimacy of our electoral process, and that will incentivize these groups to rise up, or he's going to become a martyr and be like, I'm stepping down, but the system's rigged and you guys got to fix this. And that's also going to incentivize these groups to rise up.
Yeah. But there's a difference between having a organized movement with a figurehead, right? And then there's the difference between disorganized riots.
Yeah.
I think that you will continue to see riots for the rest of this year.
It's probably going to get worse because, a lot of these were sparked because of George Floyd's death, but now a lot of them have transmitted to, like, you're seeing protests outside of courthouses to prevent landlords to try and sue their tenants.
Hey man, I mean that's effective direct action.
Yeah, no, it is. And you're only going to see more of this because this pandemic isn't over and our economy is going to get hit even more.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I think what you'll see too, because the left is the people that don't understand it. Basically, we have a relatively so conservatives are a relatively ideologically homogenous group, right? There's some variations within it, right? But they're
lockstep when it comes to getting shit done. Yeah,
they have a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And they have close alliances with the military-industrial complex. There are Democrats within that are within the hawkish organizations,
Blue
right?
Dogs, yeah.
But we're also, and there's some money within there, right? But they're not left, right? They're
liberals. The liberal is different than left.
Yeah. The leftist organization, the best that they can hope to do, I think would be similar to I would say the closest that they would be able to do would be like in the English Civil War with the Diggers. Right. Okay. Basically, you'd be able to have small sectors of either contested land or land within the democratic realm that they would be able to set up that would be similar to the Chaz. Right. That would be the best that they could do. There's the levels of organization on the left are simply not there. They're simply not there. And I will tell you right now that they will be they've already gone for the illegals. Right.
Yeah.
Now, right, the next people in line for that are the unionists and the leftists.
Well, Trump's labeled Antifa as a terrorist organization, so
yeah, that's not official, right?
But he wants to, yeah.
He wants to, right? The zeitgeist among the right is present. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at the Democrats, which are basically everyone else, right? Everyone else. That's why they want a generally electable candidate, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you can have such a rampaging boob leading the Republican Party, right? So the Democrats have a massive problem because they are divided ideologically and materially.
Yeah.
And right, then you have the leftists, which are completely they would be out of their element. It'd be a terrible thing. The most thing that they could do would be resistance strikes. That would be it. That would be it. And they would be the largest target. And Biden is even talking about targeting. Targeting. Let's just put it.
He mentioned arresting anarchists too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and then right, what's going to go on with that, right? Or is it going to be an ideological arrest? And people will say, "Oh man, that's un-American, dude. It's happened before, multiple times, within the last century."
No,
right?
I mean, Alien and Sedition Acts.
Yeah. So I mean, it is not a stretch at all. So I would say, don't be a LARPer.
Please don't jerk off to this concept of civil war, people. That's just don't do
but
it.
At the same point in time, there's a majority of Americans actually think they will see a civil war within their lifetime. Right.
Yeah.
And if anything is present, right, it's the same shit. When we go back in history all the way through, people are like, man, it's probably coming. It's not like these conflicts arise out of nowhere unless it's a secret coup.
People have an emphasis on if and when it's coming. They just can't square away on how it will happen.
No, I mean, and
But when that how happens, whenever it does, again, that's going to be a match that's going to light a tinderbox.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. So biggest thing that I would advocate for, right, is 1, stay safe. 2, don't do anything stupid, and
Yes,
3, don't
please.
be a selfish bastard.
Yeah.
I mean,
Please, yes.
right? Like those are I think pretty easy rules to live by. You got anything else before I have to skedaddle?
No, I think that's a good place to end it on that. That'd be good.
All right.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Sorry to be so bleak, but don't open.
I don't think it's
be ready, be vigilant, but don't try and provoke a civil war, people. Just don't do it.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's a reason. Let's leave with a quote from Nietzsche, right? Because I think it's a worthwhile one. When you stare into the abyss stares back, and when you fight monsters, careful not to become one yourself. Right?
Yes.
That's a little modification that I added there, but
no, that's yeah.
Also acknowledge that in those situations, people become monsters. And there's a reason why there's so many old monsters walking around to throw that quote, right?
Yeah.
I'm watching Reeducation's video on it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think I will.
All right.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good day.